Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Jiva Pereira, and I'm so glad you are here today. My phenomenal guest today is Mr. Rick Armstrong, who's going to talk to us about how can we live life on purpose, achieve more, and enjoy everything we do. Our speaker, although having spent almost his entire career coaching, publishing, advertising, and management, he's also an accomplished writer and a beer maker. I have firsthand experience. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Rick Armstrong. Rick,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jiwa. And listen, it's great to be with you all this morning. I was with about an hour and a half ago. I was making ending a presentation to a whole bunch of people in Sweden. So we've gone from we're across hemispheres today, and obviously seeing some great people. I've known Jiwa for longer than my children have been on this earth. I've got two boys, one's 31, one's 32, and that tells you how long I've known Jiwa. And we worked together in the Middle East. So I'm sure some of you know the story, but we worked together. And the bit about beer is not because I own a brewery. It's because in that country we had to, if we wanted beer, we had to make it basically. And I made it. And one day I said to Gio, come round to my place and try this beer. I think it was a laboratory, and I think it was a lab rat. I think I was testing my chemicals, I think, basically on us. But an absolute joy that years later, we are still talking and we're still friends. And we said a few weeks ago, you can have a lot of time between conversations. It can be years sometimes. But if you've got the right fit in the first place, those years vaporize in seconds, and all of a sudden you're back into almost the conversation you were having previously. And I think that's an indication of true friendship when you arrive at that point in time. Are we living life on purpose? Is a big thing for me. I talk about this a lot. I was talking about it earlier to the guys, as I say, in Scandinavia, and I'm not sure people really understand what living life on purpose is. But on purpose might not be just for self-interest, because sometimes people can think it's like that. You know, am I building my business on purpose? Am I living my daily life on purpose? But for me, living life on purpose is what we do for other people, and at the same time how that fulfills us. You find that the best givers are the people who also attract lots to them. So, and it has to be that way. I'm in an organization where we call it givers gain, and the words have to be in that order for a reason. But let's look at some things. I'm going to go through a whole bunch of my thoughts. I'm going to share you some of the things that I think about on a daily basis. And I love this the screen that's going to come up after this. In human understanding, there are 4 states of awareness. And you might have had speakers come on here and they've talked about this, but let me give you my view of it. Unconscious incompetence is the first state of awareness. Unconscious incompetence. That's where we are doing things, we don't know what we're doing, and we're unconscious to the fact that we don't know what we don't know. And then, of course, hopefully we move on from there. I think we've probably all met people who are stuck there. They are incompetent. They remain incompetent. They don't realize why they're incompetent, and they don't get out of that. But if we're looking at the growth in both success growth and in personal growth or personal development, we have to get to the next bit, which is conscious incompetence. Conscious incompetence. This is where we now know there's lots of things we don't know. And I think there's a famous, it's a poem, I think it's called Desiderata, within which it says, every day in every way, the list of things of which I know nothing grows longer. And that's where we are aware that there's lots to learn, and every day is a learning experience. And if we can share that learning experience with others, how powerful is that? So we all move as one through that wisdom generation, if you will. None of us are born with wisdom. I said this to the Scandinavian guys this morning. The person who introduced me with all sorts. I mean, it's very flowery. I saw when they finished reading out this introduction, I thought, God, I wonder who the speaker is, because I'd love to hear him. And of course, one of the things that came up was wisdom. And I said in my talk there that none of us are born with wisdom. We are all conduits for other people's wisdom. We're also conduits for a huge amount of negativity that come to us, and how impactful can that be on a daily basis. And I'm going to go back to that theme later in this. What's the third level of awareness? for humans. It's conscious competence. This is where we've moved on from knowing what we don't know. Now we're learning things and we start to apply it. So we're consciously being able to do things. Now that can be a single task. It can be working with family and colleagues. If you're in a basketball team or you play volleyball, whatever it is, it's now you're getting good at it and you are aware of that. The next state is actually where I kind of think we don't want to get to, but and I'll explain why. But if you see these phrases coming up by anybody else, they'll say that you reach this state, and I say actually you reach this state and you should maybe step back a little bit. And it's unconscious competence. This is where things are easy. You do them because you've repeated it so much that you carry on doing it. But then the bit that can happen is you start taking things for granted. The wisdom that you've gleaned, you start to take for granted. The stuff that the knowledge that we've acquired becomes second nature. And in that, we might stop learning. So for me, it's always reset. It's press reset. Every morning when we wake up, we press reset and we start over. It's a brand new day. It's not a repeat of yesterday, and it's certainly by no means anything that's a guide to tomorrow, because we're not in tomorrow and we're not in yesterday. We're in this moment. And you'll hear lots of people talk about being present. Are you present? And it's again a pet subject of mine. How many times, especially in the world of Zoom, how many times I asked just before we came on, I said, is everyone going to have the videos on? And I was told no, they won't have the videos on, and they'll be on mute. In some of the presentations I make, I say I want everybody with their video on, and the reason is if for instance, if I just see a black postage stamp on my screen, are you still there? I don't know. I don't know whether the audience has left. Maybe you've all gone to the pub and it's just me and Jua that's here having a chat. Could be. But also, are you present? It's one thing to turn up to a Zoom event, but it's another thing to be present at the Zoom event. That's present, taking notes, learning stuff. And as I always say, if it's a bad presenter, we can learn loads. And if it's a great presenter, we can learn loads, but we should be learning whichever one of those it is. Think about this. How is it that some people achieve more in their hours? Think of some of the people around the world. Think of Elon Musk. How does he get so much done? Richard Branson. How does he get so much done? And by the way, when you look at Richard Branson, he spends half of his life in a hammock. And of course, and the business is still growing, and he's still achieving great things. If I think about Bezos, dipping in and out of being the richest man on earth. But is he achieving more each day? Yes. Is he achieving more each day? Or is that cultural organization that he's created achieving more each day? Well, of course, it's the latter. It's not the individual doing it, but it's the individual driving it. And then what you have to do is cascade down that success rate, if you will, that's going to go through everybody, that way that everybody, again, moves as one in order to create the success for everybody. But there's something else. There's another reason why some people achieve more in theirs. It's very simple, really simple, and it's this: it's habit. Habit makes us achieve more. We get into the habit of achieving more. That's all it is. That's the only difference. Remember, we're not born with wisdom. We acquire wisdom from other people. We acquire a work ethic. We're not born with a work ethic. We acquire the work ethic. We acquire all sorts of things over time by being surrounded by the right people, or go back to that list of 4 states of awareness, that one where we start to recognize we might be surrounded by the wrong people. And if we've acquired wisdom enough to gauge that, then we move away from the wrong people. Doesn't mean we have to cut them out of our lives. It just means we have to surround ourselves more with the individuals who are on the same mission as us, if you will, to do as much as possible. But habit is just programming. It's just, and I'm talking to people who know about programming, right? Habit and everything that's happened in our lives to date is started in repetition. But it's a program. I talk about I've got a whole course where I talk about comfort zones. How many times do you hear somebody saying, that will push me out of my comfort zone, or I don't feel good about that, it's outside of my comfort zone. I don't know enough, it's outside my comfort zone. Actually, nothing's outside your comfort zone, because there's no such thing as a comfort zone. Sorry to break the news, there isn't. It's a programming zone. That's the only reason we say it's outside our comfort zone, because we haven't got the right language. The right language is we were programmed to feel uncomfortable doing something, or we could have been programmed to feel excited about doing something. And therefore, it's programming. Everything comes back to programming. And if you look at habit, if you go back to that word habit, every habit is the result of repetition. Of course it is. But most habits are formed in childhood, aren't they? They're all the things that we were surrounded with up until the age of 7. And by the age of 7, that was it. By the age of 7, we had all sorts of stuff embedded in us. If we were lucky, adults around us, that could be teachers, it could be family members, whoever they were, the person that you only met for one time and they gave you a little piece of information that helped you steer in the right direction. But by the age of 7, we had pretty much the DNA for the rest of our lives, if we're not careful. But some things are really good to have been told, and they help us be successful. Let's look at those. Make friends. That's what, everyone around us said, make friends. We're going off to school, make friends. Play nice. Don't be a bully. Make sure you're looking after your fellow students. Imagine a 5-year-old being, don't fight with people, play nice, have more friends at the end of the day. Tell the truth. Don't lie. No need to lie. Just tell the truth. What about this one? Do your homework. When I was talking to Toshika yesterday, we're having a great chat, and there was and I asked him a question. It might not have cottoned on to why I asked the question, but it is about homework, and I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I'm going to give you my thought, Rick Armstrong's thought on why people in Sri Lanka and a lot of Southeast Asia, for instance, why a lot of young people go on to be really successful compared to something that goes on in the UK, US, and some parts of Europe. I will come back to it, and it all relates to the attitude towards homework, but I'll come back to that. And then, but let's look at another thing on the list. Did your parents have to tell you to take a bath? Because let's face it, if we're going to work with people, we want to work with people who've taken a bath, don't we? Or taken a shower. And of course, metaphorically, training, learning, acquiring wisdom, listening to podcasts, enlightening our life with more good things coming into it. It's a bit like taking that bath on a regular basis. If you're not gonna keep trying to upskill and learn more, you're going to get stagnant and stale, and it's not going to be good for you. Your brain's going to atrophy, and you're going to live shorter. You're going to live shorter. There's a whole bunch of stuff that says if you constantly try to acquire more knowledge, learn more, do more, you will live longer. Let me just give you, I'm in danger, by the way, Zhua knows this, I'm in danger of going off the piece, but just allow me to go off the piece just for a second. There's a famous guy in the UK, I'm not sure you might have heard of him, he's Greek origin, his name's Theopofides, and there's a TV series called Dragon's Den, and for years he was one of the dragons, and he's got hundreds of millions of pounds, he's made huge fortunes in all sorts of different types of business, and he was asked by a newspaper what his retirement plan was, and he had one word for his retirement plan, and he said, death. And of course, the newspapers made a big thing out of this. What do you mean by death? And he said, well, why would I stop doing what I love doing to retire? What is that notion of retirement? Why would I have that as a goal? I don't have that as a goal. In fact, I have a goal to live as long as possible and do as much as possible and achieve as much as possible. And of course, in there is the truth that you will live longer if you aspire to that. If you program your system to retire at an age, and 65 is the age that people talk about in the UK, but I'm going to retire at 65. Imagine you started a job at 16 and you're going to retire at 65. For all of those years in between, you've programmed your immune system to do what? You've programmed your immune system to retire. It's going to retire, and apocryphally, we all know people who, when they retire, they die within 3 years because they've programmed their immune system to stop. You see, on a daily basis, if we uplift our stress state, and I'm talking about positive stress state, we boost our immunity to things. And so it's a good thing to be in a slight elevated place of stress that boosts our immune system, because what we're saying inwardly is we need to strive to do more, therefore we need to protect ourselves in order to do that thing that we've got to do. Whereas when we lie back and we say, oh, I'm going to take a few weeks off, What's the first thing that happens when you go on holiday? One of the first things that happen is you get a cold. You get on a plane, you go somewhere, you start to feel ill, and people blame the traveling. They blame the number of people they met in the airport. They blame all sorts of things. It's not. It's because you've given your immune system a rest. Your immune system goes, oh, thank God, I don't have to work so hard now. And then you pick up those bugs along the way. What about when we look at bad habits that block the space where success could enter? So there's lots of those. I said to you, I'd talk about this one that I was talking about with Toshika yesterday. Habit, homework, Friday after school or Sunday evening. Now, this is what I was talking about with some of the guys this morning, and last week I was talking about with some guys in Ireland where I ran a little thing for them. And now here's the difference, right? If I was in front of an audience of 100, 200 people in the UK, 300 people, and I have done this, and I've asked for a show of hands, business people, and I said, can I have a show of hands? Who did their homework on a Friday evening before the weekend when they got in from school, or Sunday evening, or they left it until they were on the bus on a Monday morning? Loads of people put their hand up to the Monday morning on the bus going to school, some Sunday evening, and then you always get one or two who say, oh, Friday. Toshika said to me Friday, instantly, no prompting. He said Friday because, and he's absolutely right, because I wanted to enjoy the weekend. Well, unless you know that, you put things off because you want to start enjoying the weekend before the homework, because the homework's not the enjoyable thing. And I think this is a big difference between kids out where you are and kids over here. Kids over here now are being pampered to the point where they'll put things off to the last minute. And instead of saying, okay, if you get this done, you can enjoy your weekend. There's something else that happens as well in that process. If you leave things to the last minute, you still carry them around with you. So imagine again, going back to that metaphor of you going on holiday. You're going on holiday. You've got an in tray that's full of stuff. You've got to get it done, and then that day comes, and you go, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff done. You get it all done, then you go on holiday. There's something that we normally find out when we go through that process is actually a lot of it was really easy to do. It's just been sitting in the in tray. I just didn't want to do it. That's the only reason it was still there. But it felt so good to get it done. It felt so good to do that thing that took a few minutes. That was just, and it was just lying there, but it wasn't lying there. It was lying here. And that's the problem when we've got things outside that we should do, we're still carrying them around all the time. Our subconscious is carrying that around. And they are very heavy rocks, sharp rocks in the rucksack of life that we end up carrying everywhere with us, unless we start to develop a way of breaking that habit. Now, you can't stop a habit, you've got to change a habit. So it's looking for that way to change stuff that's going to make your day better. What about this one? Mom, I don't feel well, Mom. I don't think I can go to school. That's okay. That's okay. You take the day off, and because you're not well. Okay, when you start going down that road with small, noisy luggage with children, when you start pampering to that, you've got to be. By the way, there's a caveat: they might be ill. But what can happen is you can sometimes encourage them to feign being ill because they want a day off, because they want a duvet day. The trouble with that is it carries on in later life. These are the kind of employees that seem to be ill a lot. They seem to have a lot of headaches. They've got a lot of migraines. There's something physiologically wrong with them. Well, actually, what happened was they were given a habit in childhood that says, poor me, I don't feel well today. And then that goes on into that workplace where they go, oh, I'm really not feeling too good. I need a day off. And then that harms them before it harms anybody else. Also go back to that stuff that goes on in the mind, the way the subconscious works. The subconscious starts to buy into you saying you're not well, and it starts to make you not well. You start to get ill because you kept telling yourself, because I want a day off, do you know what? I don't feel too good. And eventually your system goes, well, I better back that up. I'll give you some things to think about now. You will not be well. So be very careful of going down that route. What about this one? When life manages you instead of you managing life, the illustration there is linked to email. So have you ever had the experience? In fact, if you have this, I'm sure nobody here, by the way, today would have this, but if you know people who have automated inboxes where, you know, it's every few minutes it's checking for email, and it pops up in the bottom left or right hand corner of your screen, and it says another email, another email, another email. Can you tell them to switch that off? What do they need it for? They don't need that. Are they jumping to the tune of everybody else sending an email? So they need to look at it straight away. And what can happen with that, by the way? This is where your email inbox gets full, because you only start looking at the ones you like. I get if I got junk mail about cars or holidays or stuff, I would go, oh, that's nice. So like a little magpie, they're the things I'm interested in. Oh, that's interesting. I'll go and look at that. Elon Musk. Oh, I follow Elon Musk. Oh, I'll go and look at that. Oh, there's some work that's just come in, but you know what? I'll leave that till later. Oh, there's a nice holiday. I'll go and look at that. What we've got to do is make sure we start to operate the way we train other people to respond to us. We start to operate the way we train other people to respond to us. I've got a thing. I had a business partner. His name's Jeff Matthews. He doesn't mind me mentioning him in this context. But I think he's either got Asperger's or autism. I've known him for a long time. He's a really good friend. But we were business partners in a company. We had it for 8 years, 8.5 years, and we sold the company. And we had a fantastic time while we were doing it. And but he used to he'd send me a text message, he'd leave me a voice message, and he'd send me an email. And the voice message was always, "Did you get my text message or the email?" So the way to annoy him was to phone him up and say, "Jeff, you know that message you sent me? Yep, I got it," and shut the phone down. And he used to get so furious. But my point was, I am not. His urgency was not my urgency, and he was just trying to get something crossed off his list. He had it on his to-do list, and it would eat away at him that it was on his to-do list. But the problem was, it wasn't on my to-do list. So the danger is that I would respond to people like that, the people who shout the loudest, the people who send the most messages, they use the most tools to try and contact you. These days, we've got more ways to be contacted than ever. Sometimes you'll get a WhatsApp message, something on LinkedIn, you'll get a message pop up on Facebook, they'll send you an email, a voicemail, the whole lot. And for what? For them to try and get you to jump and play to their tune, when you shouldn't be doing that. You should make sure everybody's responding to you the way you want to be responded to. What about this for a habit? Can you get more done each day? Yes, you can. Absolutely. Of course we can. We prove that to ourselves all the time. We get, unless you're a coal miner, you know, where you're shifting a certain ton of coal each day, then you're not going to get more done than that. But for most of us, we can get more done. And the day we prove we get more done is what I said earlier, is the day before we go on holiday. That's the day when we get twice as much done, 3 times as much done. We can do amazing things. What about the day you move house? How much stuff? Have you ever moved home? OMG. If you've ever moved home, you get so much stuff done. In fact, you didn't know how much stuff there was to do, but you get it done because you're on a deadline. You're going to do that thing. You're going to move forward. But we can prove to ourselves we can get more done. We just got to work in a way that frees up that space. That maybe we should take 10 words to say something instead of 20. Maybe we should take 5 minutes to do something instead of 10. And that way we start to get speed up. The whole thing starts to speed up. What about this one? I have to be careful with some audiences, especially some of the, the mixed business audiences that I talk to, and I'll preface it with something along the lines of, if there's anyone here who is a life coach who deals in work-life balance, I'm really sorry for what I'm going to say next, because I don't mean to cause offense, but there is no such thing as work-life balance. There is life, and work just happens to be part of it. You see, the problem is, once you separate those two things out, then you can get into all sorts of trouble. And what do I mean by a 7-day weekend? Sometimes people say to me, well, how can I take 7 days off work to have a weekend? That's not what that says. That says approach work as if it's a weekend. What do I mean by that? What's the definition of a weekend? You do the things you want to do with the people you want to do it with when you want to do it. That's the definition of most people's weekend. I'm with the people I want to be with. I'm doing the thing I want to do. I'm doing it in my time, so it's all good. Well, why can't a Monday morning be like that? If Monday morning is the start of your working week, if we were in Saudi Arabia, we'd be talking about Saturday morning. But whatever the day of the week you start work, why is that not good? And why is Friday better? For some people, it is. For some people, they just do not look forward to Monday morning. And there's all sorts of stuff out there. If you're mad enough to go and look at anything on the internet that talks about things like, we've got sayings for it, the Monday morning blues. The Monday morning blues. Who feels good now that you start talking about the Monday morning blues? What's the Monday morning blues? Why isn't Monday morning exciting to me? It is. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, I don't discriminate. Wednesdays, I'm not discriminating against Wednesdays. I don't blame you for being called Wednesday. It's not your fault. I want to embrace every day. And let me ask you this. When you woke up this morning, was it a good day? It was, because you woke up. You had a breath. Can you imagine the people who did not have a breath this morning? It is not a good day for them. But we have one. If we've got a pulse, that is already a good day, and we should make sure we're embracing it. Make sure you start looking at every day as the opportunity to create a new world around you, a new culture around you that's going to impress, it's going to inspire, and it's going to motivate other people. There's a thing about inspiration and motivation, by the way. If you want to be inspired and motivated, start looking for ways you can inspire and motivate. Don't wait to be inspired and motivated. Start giving that to other people. Start looking for things that you can say to people. It might be small things you can do. If you're in a supermarket, do you smile and engage with the person who's serving you, or are you on your mobile phone completely ignoring them while somebody else packs your bag? If you see somebody who's struggling with some heavy luggage or something, did you reach forward to help? Why wouldn't you do that? If a stranger stops you in the street and say, do you know the way to somewhere, say, yeah, absolutely, just take 5 minutes, instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, I'm a bit busy. If you see somebody you can help them, and it can be as simple as a smile can change somebody's life. Are you engaging people in that way? And then you will start to have that 7-day weekend. Let me tell you something else about work-life balance. It's this. I'm not sure if you reckon, a lot of people recognize that image because it's an apocryphal image now. I mean, it's a famous image. It's 1974, August the 7th, New York. And sadly, there's something else about that image. That's one. What you can see on the right is one of the World Trade Centers, and of course, on the left is the other one. And Philippe Petit is a French tightrope walker, and he criminally, him and some other people who are passionate about getting that rope, that wire across from the two buildings, so he could walk across. They basically got into the building late at night, the night before, and they took all the ropes and everything with them. And there was a lot of work that's been done on the upper floors of the building, and they hid away there. And in the earlier hours, they got that tight rope wire across there. Why do I show that picture, and what the hell has that got to do with work-life balance? So this is where we come to the description of trying to be in balance. If you think about a tightrope walker, they're always trying to do this, they're always trying to stay in balance. And that's the problem with work life, is what you do is you set one weight against another weight, and you'll always be struggling between the two. Whereas if you step off that just for a moment in your head, I don't mean step off the high wire, but I just mean in your head, just step away from the stress point and say, why would I do that? Why don't I have every day as exactly the same in my mind as the day before and the day after? Why don't I just say, okay, this is a brand new day, whether it's a Sunday or a Friday or a Monday, this is a brand new day, and I'm going to make the absolute most I can out of this and not be in a state of stress. We can be defined by 3 things. I love these. The words we use, the company we keep, and the actions we take. The words we use dictates the company we keep and the actions we take, obviously. So what words do you use on a daily basis? Do you use words that make people feel like this, that you're just bringing a dark cloud to people and they need an umbrella to keep the rain and the hail and the snow off? Or do you make people feel like this? Do you make people feel like they're just absolutely excited to be alive, and they're soaking up the ozone, they're breathing it in, and they just feel like it's just everything in the world is absolutely perfect? What about those actions that you take? What about these things? The actions you take, are they making everybody feel like, oh, the weight of the world is on my shoulders and I'm not sure how I'm going to get this done? And then do you know what? I'll spread some bad news to a few people. So I'll do some things that are just going to annoy people, and then I'll spread all of that stuff around. Or are you making people feel like this? Do you know what? I can get anything done. It's nothing's too much trouble. In fact, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, they say. Because busy people go, listen, I'm up against it, but you know what? I'll work out a way to get this done. Whereas a lot of people, and again, we come to the cultural thing in the two videos that came up before this, the word culture came up. And I sometimes think when you start to recruit from large organizations, there's a thing, and I work with clients who do this, and sometimes they have to reset culture because it might, you know, their culture or what they think is culture is not what I think is culture. What they think is culture is, have we given them a pool table in the restroom or wherever it is they meet in some place in the building, and that's part of our culture. Is, you know, we're a great fun place to be. Why would you do that? I have not got a clue why you would do that. Would you encourage your team to help with charities? Absolutely. Now that will help build culture, because that's a real hands-on helping society type thing. Instead of giving people something for me, you give them the wherewithal to think about how can I help them, and then that helps to change everything. What about the company you keep? There's a thing you can look it up all over the internet. Everyone who talks about this subject says something along the lines of, you've got to always be measuring the top 5 people that you spend your time with. Who's the top 5 people you spend most of your time with? And are they like you or similar to you? And if they're all miserable, is it you that started it? Are you miserable and therefore you collect more miserable people and you just want to be around them? Or are you willing to change that and say, actually, do you know, okay, I'm miserable. What makes me miserable? Well, me. So it's always that way. It's not other things make you miserable. It's you, because of the attitude you bring to other things that make you miserable. How do I get out of that now? And it's not always easy. It can be difficult. But when you start to analyze those people around you, sometimes it's like looking in the mirror. They are similar to me, and there's a reason for that. Why is that? Do I like that similarity or do I not? And here's a trick question. I asked it. I didn't say it was a trick question in Sweden this morning, but I'm telling you it's a trick question. What are you passionate about? Why is it a trick question? Because when I ask audiences this, if I stand in an auditorium and I just say, is there one thing? If I said to you, is there one thing you're passionate about? I mean, you can do this right now in your heads, or write it down. What's the one thing you are passionate about? What are you passionate about? What is that one thing that you've got a burning desire to do or do more of? What's that one thing you're passionate about? And therefore, Rick, you say, why is that a trick question? Well, that's a trick question because why are you not passionate about everything? Why did you think of one thing to be passionate about? Why are you not passionate about making the dinner, doing the hoovering, driving the car, going to work? Why are you not passionate about going to the supermarket? Why do we start to fractionalize things so that we end up again in that kind of work-life balance state where the bulk of things we do we're not passionate about, and we do them only to be at that point where we're doing the thing we're passionate about, whatever that is? Why would we not be passionate about everything? Why would we not choose to be passionate about everything? Because once we start to get into that habit, everything starts to become exciting. We all start to be more excited about being with each other. It's a fantastic place to be. I'm working with some people in the UK at the moment, and they're, because of what happened through lockdown, they were struggling a little bit with working from home. They were able to open up to me on an individual basis that, you know, they would be distracted working from home. They just think, oh, okay, I'll go and make another cup of tea. And all of a sudden they found hours were drifting by and they weren't getting too much done. And so we had to say, well, okay, how can we use technology to come up with a strategy that's going to overcome that without having to all go back to offices? Because one of the things for this particular company is they're all spread out and they can use technology to work on a daily basis. So we've ordered a whole bunch of separate screens that are coming into their homes, basically, and they're going to be sitting at the back of where their computer screens are, but they're going to be permanently connected to each other. So they're all going to be hooked up at the same time. So and they've got the choice to switch it on, switch it off. But while they're working, they've got their colleagues in the background. They could shout out. One of the things that came up was they were kind of fed up with all the messages that were going back and forward. Whereas if they were in the office, they'd go, if I was in the office with Jira, I'd go, Jira, and what about this? And Jira would go, oh yeah, do this. Whereas if I leave Jiwa a message, now I'm leaving a message. Is it in his? Remember what I said earlier? Is he going to pick that message up now and do something with it? Or by the time he comes back to me, I go, oh, yeah, I've already solved that, and I've wasted his time and my time. Whereas we could have done it in seconds. And of course, using technology, we can do that. Why wouldn't I be able to be here and be able to see my colleagues in my office on my screen over here? Of course, we can do that stuff. Let's get passionate about everything in business and then make sure that everybody's on board with it. Consider this, if you will, for a moment. How can I make people better off as a result of connecting with me? First thing that should come into your head when you're invited to do something, meet people, whatever that thing is, can you just think before you contact them, before you connect with them, before you put out a hand to shake hands with them, before anything happens in connection terms, just go, what's in this for them? I talk about it in networking terms. I do lots of talks about networking, business networking. And I say, if you go around the world with the words in your head, what's in this for me, you get less. But if you go around the world with what's in this for them, you get more instantly. You start to get more. So if you're diarizing appointments, so let's say you use Outlook for your appointments, whatever you use for scheduling. When was the last time you looked at, let's say, a day of appointments or a week of appointments, and you look at each appointment and you say, okay, what's the outcome that the other person wants from this meeting? Often it's your outcome that you're looking for. I'm selling something. I want to talk to them about something I need. Whereas what's in this for them? So if you can just think for a moment, what would they get as a benefit of speaking to me? What would they get? And then I'll write that down. If you look at my diary, all the appointments have the other person's either predicted outcome, so I'm guessing, or it's the known outcome. They want this, so and that's what we're meeting for. And so if I've got that, it just takes a few seconds of thought just before I make the call, just before when Jiwa and I speak, I just take a less than a minute just to, in my head, say, okay, what's in this for Jiwa? What can I do for him? And then I'm in a much better place when the conversation starts. Instead of how can I get to the point of this thing that I want? No, it's this thing that that person wants. You get your outcomes faster if you put other people's outcomes first. What about good news or bad news? I said I'd talk about this. Good news or bad news? Which do you prefer? Oh my God, are we in a world of bad news? I've got, if you meet some of the people I know, I hope that one day we get to meet, and I hope you meet some of the people I know. And he's meeting loads of people I know at the moment. And if you ask them about this, they go, oh, Rick's got us brainwashed. We're not allowed to watch the news, listen to the news, or read the news. Not allowed. I've made it against the law for anyone to buy a newspaper. If you're listening to news on the radio, you're going to get arrested by the Rick police because it's not allowed. Why are you doing that to yourself? Because there's no such thing as news anymore. News is an inert word. It can mean good or bad, but it's been hijacked by the world's media basically to mean bad. So over here we have a show that's called News at 10. Well, I say to people, it's not news at 10, it's bad news at 10. It's not news at 10. Because news is, there's more good news than bad news. When was the last time you switched on a news channel and got absolutely inundated with good news? And what happens when we get inundated with bad news? Well, first, the world is a really bad place. We've got it going on at the moment with so-called COVID or coronavirus. Everyone's talking about testing for coronavirus and COVID. Do you know there is no test for COVID? And coronavirus covers so many things that everyone thinks they've got COVID, but they probably haven't. And that's where all these numbers are coming out from India at the moment, all these huge numbers of, positive COVID tests, 500,000 COVID tests positive. Nah, most of those people don't have COVID, or they had it. They could have had it. They could have had it a year ago, and the cells that have died now, but once they're tested, show as a positive, but they've died. They've got way past it, and they should not go near any vaccines. This is all, it's media stuff that's driving this. If you've got enough people on a news channel that show themselves having the injection and then boasting about it, I've had the vaccine today, look at me, I'm great, and they're a news reporter, guess what the agenda is for that media channel? It isn't protecting people or saying, actually, do you know what? Maybe we should question this. Maybe we should actually look at the real stuff that's going on behind it. Maybe we should look at Mr. and Mrs. Gates and say, why have they chosen this moment to get divorced after making 100 million out of an investment in a company called AstraZeneca? A company, by the way, that the Oxford trials that were done on a vaccine, this is all spread by the media, the Oxford trials done on the vaccine, the people behind the Oxford trials said right at the start, they did not want to profit by it. They wanted to give the outcome to all pharmaceutical companies around the world to empower them to make those vaccines. That's what they said. Bill Gates leapt in and said, no, don't do that. We're going to sell it to AstraZeneca. And that's what happened. Instead of giving the results to everybody so it could be free for all and cheap medicine, it became a profit center and headed off. Which news are you going to choose to listen to? Are you going to listen to the bad news, or are you going to create the good news? Because you don't need to worry about other people's bad news, because that's all that's being spread. All you've got to do is spread your good news. Look for the stuff that's going on that you can positively influence other people with and deliver that thing. Start to look for good news, and it's all around us. It's disproportionately higher compared to any form of bad news, because most bad news is created or manufactured or made to suit an argument for somebody else, instead of saying, actually, do you know what? There's some amazing people in this world. I was in Dublin a couple of years ago, and we were walking around the streets late at night. I'm from Dublin. I'm Irish, and we're walking around the streets. A whole bunch of friends of mine, colleagues from business, Rich Hayden, and a whole bunch of other people. We're walking around at night, and I saw a bunch of young people, teenagers, and they were wearing blue high-vis jackets, and they had a name across the back, a logo, if you will, and they were pulling a trolley, and they just pulled up next to somebody who is clearly homeless, lying in a shop front, and they were going through the trolley and they were basically talking to him, young Irish kids, basically teenagers, and they were saying, what do you need? We've got clothes, we've got this, we've got food, we've got tea, coffee, and they had it all in that trolley they were carrying around. And then I went up to them when they moved away from that guy, and I said, hey, you guys, is this a one-off? Do you know, how regularly do you do this? He said, no, there's hundreds of us, and we do it every night. Every night of the year we're out here, and there's a whole bunch of people supporting us. And I thought, can you imagine hundreds of teenagers going out into the streets at night to see how they could help the homeless? And it kind of makes you emotional. It kind of makes you feel that's the stuff that should be the headlines in the newspapers, not some kid kicks off and shoots somebody. It's disproportionate reporting. We've got to be careful with it. What about looking at some of those words that we use? Are you careful about the words you use? Because words will drive a conversation in one way or another. And I'm talking positive, negative, positive, negative. And what we're going to do is look for the positive all the time, make sure we're going in the right direction. If you think about this just for a moment, words start war, and words start peace. Words start disease. Absolutely, words start disease, and words start health. The words we use start ignorance, because they're the wrong words, but words can also start knowledge. What about the words that start failure? What about the words that start success? If I use these words, I'm going to fail. I might not use that narrative, but that's exactly the outcome. But if I use these words, I'm going to be successful. What about the words that start scarcity, and then the words that start abundance? All around us, all the time, there's the words that can start abundance. We've just got to start using them. What about the words that start fear, when we look at things in a fearful way, instead of looking at things, we're excited? Do you know what? Words can start us being excited about stuff. Those people who fear public speaking, you know, public speaking, getting married, moving home, they're, you know, the top of most people's lists of fears. I've got a fear of that, because nobody told them about the word excitement. Nobody said that the emotion of fear and excitement are so close together that they're almost intertwined. And it's up to you to put the word fear on it or the word excitement on it. The word fear stops you getting out of the airplane. If you think about going parachuting, the word excitement gets you out of the airplane. It's time to look at life in an excited way instead of a fearful way, or a holding back way, or a scarcity way, or a failure way. If I fail a few times, so what? I've just proven 3 ways it can't be done. Now let me try again, and I'll see if I can find a way it can be done until I get to the way it can be done. What about using the words that nurture human capital, increasing value but for all by helping the individual succeed is what we're talking about. Increasing value for all by helping the individual succeed. Many years ago, I was on a plane from Dubai to Muscat in Oman. It was a long time ago, and I was sitting next to an American. I didn't know who he was. I was young. He was old. When I say old, I now realize he was younger than I am now. But he was old to me because I was a young guy, and I was eager to soak up everything from everybody. And he turned out to be a director of Johnson & Johnson, the global chemical company and pharmaceutical company. And like everybody at that time, for me, everyone I met, I was saying, you know, what's your one piece of advice in business? What would you say to help somebody? And he said something that's been so powerful for me, and it's been with me all my life since. And I use it on a daily basis. I use it in process. I use it all the time. And he said something that was really simple. And it was, you can be incompetent in everything except surrounding yourself with the right people. You can be incompetent in everything except surrounding yourself with the right people. You see, when you surround yourself with the right people, you don't need to worry about your core competence. And it's the difference between somebody who starts a business and an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur can start any business without having any competence around the product or service offering of the company. What they've got to have is the skill set to run a business. Most people start a business based on a core competence. They start a business. If you're a software engineer, you go into software. If you're working for a web development company, you move on to start your own company in web development. If you're a graphic designer, you go on into graphic design. That's the way you start your company. And then you find out actually how crazy it is to start a company. It's crazy to start a company. Most people fail because what they've started the company based on is their core competence. Knowing how to build websites is not going to help you build a business. It is not, and I don't care how good you are at it. Knowing how to run a business is going to help you build a business. Knowing how to acquire those things is going to help you build a business. And knowing how to surround yourself who are more competent than you. We've had a dumbing down of stuff across so many industries and educational centers. And if you look at the universities, for instance, there's some really dumb stuff that's been going on, where the wisdom of the village starts to get weaker and weaker over time. If you've got somebody who's done 5 years at university or 6 years at university, and then they get a PhD, and then they're teaching other people that stuff, you will get a natural weakening of the learning because they don't have the experiential. There shouldn't be, this is again, Rick's law, there shouldn't be a way that anyone who gets to a PhD level can teach anybody else for 5 years. They should go off and do something in society, in work. They should go and do something that's not teaching and not learning. They should go off somewhere else and do something and then come back and start to teach people. And they will be much stronger for that. But what we end up with is students who never leave school teaching students. And some of those are never going to leave school because they become the teachers. And what wisdom are they bringing to the party in that case? There are 5 words to use when you hear the alarm clock go off. I don't know what time you set your alarm clock. Mine goes off around 5 a.m. every day. And there's 5 words that you should use every time you hear the alarm clock. So this is the only 5 words you've got to hear. By the way, if your alarm clock goes off at 5 a.m., are you in a good mood or a bad mood? Do you want to get up or not? Is your pillow going, I love you, Jiwa, I love you, please stay with me in the bed, don't leave me? And then you go, oh, just stay here for a little bit longer. Or do you use these words? This is a great day. If those are the first 5 words that go through your thought process on a morning when you wake up, this is a great day means it is. Never say this will be a great day because you're pushing it off into the future. And this isn't a future tense thing. It is already a great day. It's a great day for the reasons I said earlier. Have you got a pulse? Are you breathing? What's your respiration rate? Have you got a heart rate? Can you stand up? If you can do those things, for crying out loud, this is already a great day. And if you start with this is a great day, it just gets better and better. If you start with, oh God, no, it's Monday morning and I've got to go to work, I can tell you it's not a good day already, and you're not putting yourself in the right place for it. I'm gonna leave you with this. This is one of my favorite screens. Imagine you're staring at the mirror on the wall. Imagine that, you know, from the cartoons, from the animations, mirror, mirror on the wall, mirror, mirror on the wall. What kind of world would this be if everyone in it were just like me? Now you can change the word world for company, organization, network, family. What kind of family would this be if everyone in it were just like me? What kind of company would this be if everyone in it were just like me? And that's where you've got to be not delusional, but self-analytical. And you've got to say, actually, do you know what? There's some things I need to change in order for this company, this culture, this organization to be the kind that I want it to be, rather than a reflection of me being weaker. What I've got to do is strengthen myself in order to help the company organization be stronger. And if I do that on a regular basis, just analyze, am I doing everything I could possibly do to make this thing, this entity that I'm part of, a great place to be, one of the best places on earth to be? And that's about taking ownership. That's where I don't go to work for somebody. I work for me at somebody's business. That's a completely different thing. I'm not part of some conveyor belt system. I'm part of something that's absolutely meaningful and living life on purpose. Let me show you this screen. Always remember to say this. So you're at the supermarket checkout, you're in the local grocery store, you're at the bank, somebody just says after you through a door. What is the next two words that come out of your head are thank you. So always remember to say thank you. And guys, thank you for putting up with me today. Thank you very much.
Unmute. Sorry, can you all hear me?
Joe, we
Let
can
me
hear
stop.
you.
All right, good. Rick, there's a lot of wisdom. Thank you very much for doing this today. We really do appreciate this.
Oh, Jew, I said to you when you asked me, I was so honoured for you and me to be doing a gig, fella. It's absolutely great stuff, and I appreciate people have given up their time. I hope there were a couple of things in there that might just steer a thought process in a slightly different direction. I'm sure, once again, I'm sure everybody here is ahead of me on every screen I put up. But the important thing is you go out and you get other people to have some of those thoughts. All right, Jiwa.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, great night.
Yeah. Rick, before we end, there are a couple of questions from the audience.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So there are three questions. I'll start off with the first one. This is regarding, don't we need to reevaluate the purpose of life as an adult, since most of our habits, beliefs, and values influenced by culture, religion, and childhood heroes?
Can you just, I just didn't pick up the first part of that question.
Don't we need to reevaluate the purpose of life as an adult?
Honest to goodness, that is such a great thing to say. Absolutely, we do need to reevaluate that purpose on every level as well, and quite right to list religion in there. So spirituality, family, business, all of those things. We need a complete shake-up of what's going on in the world, and we need less selfishness. That selfishness gene that's almost unfortunately now is becoming stronger, actually, and that's again fundamentally I believe, now it's only my opinion, but I believe it's a cause of the way we distribute so-called news these days. Is we're too quick to share that bad news and not the good news. The more good news we share, some of you may hate me for saying this as well. And it's a kind of a contradiction in terms, but I am really keen that we censor some of the stuff that gets to our young people without us harming freedom of speech. So that's why it's a contradiction, because there's a double edge to that. The problem is, since the 1960s around the world, we've had a so-called liberalization of things, when actually what we needed to do is make sure that we kept people focused and on track in order to be better adults. But actually things changed a lot, certainly through the first part of the 60s worldwide. And that's where we got the thing of, one of the small examples is that dumbing down of education. So there was we talk over here about when I was at school. Okay, it feels like when Queen Victoria was on the throne, but when I was at school, we had teachers who were, if you compared them to adults that you knew as when you were a child, they would be like your father, mother, grandmother, grandfather. There'd be that kind of distance between you. And then what happened in the 60s going into the 70s is that started to change, and they started to become more like brothers and sister age that were teaching you, instead of having that kind of peer respect that we got as kids. And then that started to break certain things up, and we started to have less respect for the teaching profession, less respect for adults and stuff like that. You're ahead of us in your country in that you look after the elderly better than we do. We've got a disgrace of a system over here where the elderly are not being looked after properly, or being left to their own devices, or being pushed off into homes and not being looked after by family. One of the things I do appreciate about how you live and work is that the respect for the elderly community. And I think that's one of the things in the culture, in the fabric of culture. If that starts to break up, that's where we start to lose our purpose or sense of purpose. I'm not sure if I answered the question correctly. Once again, Rick Armstrong goes off on a tangent. Sorry, Thashika.
Yes. Yeah. The second question, Rick, this is regarding the Monday morning versus doing them in Friday evening. And so this question is, if we always try to get things done before everything else, when does one live life? Shouldn't there be inner threshold which measure how important that homework is for my future?
Do you know the whole point of the 7-day weekend? I didn't say, by the way, work 7 days. I said have a 7-day weekend. I have days off. I have time off. My thing is that I treat the weekend exactly the same as I treat the week, if you will. So it's a 7-day weekend obviously in speech marks or quotes, because my Saturdays, sometimes I'll be working and sometimes I'll be with the family or other stuff. The thing is that when I'm working, I enjoy it exactly the same as I enjoy being with my family. And that's what we've got. That's the state of nirvana. That's where we've truly arrived, with a sense of purpose in the world, because I do enjoy it. I don't do anything I don't enjoy. I don't spend time with people I don't want to spend time with, and I work at a rate that is very satisfying. Get more done each day. So forgive me if I inferred that we shouldn't take time off. That's not what I was talking about. What I was talking about was making sure that we respect all of the time we have, and not just pockets of it where we just want to be with somebody else when we're working. Toshika?
Right. Yes. And the last question, if you get a chance to give only one nugget of wisdom to your young self, let's say 30-year-old you, what would it be?
I'll give you two. The first one is I'll make my presentation shorter for people. I'd make my answers shorter. However, now the reality is the one that I live by is the one that I said earlier, which is make sure you surround yourself with absolutely competent people. I am blessed to be surrounded with amazing people. When I was in Saudi Arabia, I was blessed with, Jiwa and all the guys who were in the company there across the 3 offices that we had in the 3 parts of Saudi Arabia. And I've always done the same thing. I've always looked at Jiwa's famously he talks a lot about human capital. It's one of the things that whether I was doing it consciously or unconsciously, I was dealing in human capital a long time ago. And part of that 7-day weekend is making sure that everybody who's working with me also enjoys the process. I've got a young woman who's just joined my company. She's 19 years old. Her name's Daisy, and she's joined my publishing company. And she's been working since she was 15. She got an apprenticeship when she was 15 in a company. She stayed with that company for 4 years. I know the company really well. I know the work she's been doing. I love her attitude. And one of the things we were talking about holidays, for instance, a tiny little thing along the line of how we treat people. And she said, how many days holiday do I get? And I said, well, you get 21 days paid holiday. You get the national holidays as well. And by the way, you get your birthday holiday. But you get to choose which day you want off, because your birthday might fall on a weekend. So I want you to make sure you get that day off. But you have to decide 7 days either side of the weekend, if your birthday falls on the weekend, which day you want off. And you just tell me in advance, you can have that. And she was almost in tears, because what I didn't know was she wanted her birthday off last year in the company she was with. And they say, no, it's not part of your entitlement. And I just think, why not? Why can't you just treat people just be civilized about this, and then we can all be grown-ups. Already I've got a loyal member of staff. She's got competence that I don't have in the skill set that she's brought with her. But if we go back to what that American said, just surround yourself with amazing people, and you will enjoy every single bit of your life and business. Toshka.
That's all the questions that we have, Rick, today, and thank you very much for your precious advice and the things that you have shared with us. And again, thank you, Jiva. And I would like to thank all the audience who joined with us today. And we will be back with another webinar within, again, end of the month. Right.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good to be with you. Take care.
Thank you.
You too.
Take
Thank
care.
you very
Bye.
much.